Good morning and welcome to another episode of Gospel Inc.'s Digital Bytes. Have you ever wondered how, in a world advocating for love and unity, war remains a constant? Today we will delve into this challenging topic, seeking wisdom from the scriptures and understanding our role as Christians amidst global conflicts. The echoes of war, whether in Ukraine or Israel, reverberate globally, casting shadows on our collective conscience. Yet our faith beckons us to find understanding and hope amidst the turmoil, pointing towards the ultimate prize of peace. The Bible doesn't sidestep the topic of war. From the early tale of Cain's jealousy-driven murder of Abel to the exhaustive wars of the Old Testament, we see humanity's persistent inclination towards conflict. But more importantly, we witness God's sovereignty in these turbulent times. Consider Joshua's campaign against the Ammonites. It wasn't a mere act of conquest, but a fulfillment of God's covenant with Israel and their unique role in the redemptive history. Across scriptures, God's hand is evident during these times of strife. Miraculous events, like the parting of the Red Sea, shielding the Israelites from danger, while other wars served as divine instruments of judgment and mercy. These episodes steer us towards a profound truth of God's overarching plan, even in the face of human-made chaos. But even as we wade our way through these tales of conflict, an internal message of peace emerges. Prophets, during times when Israel strayed, would often employ metaphors related to war, calling the nation back to God. In the midst of this, Isaiah heralded the coming of Jesus, our Prince of Peace. He would teach about love, unity, and reconciliation, reminding us that true peacemakers are blessed and recognized as God's children. However, the conflicts aren't just external. The spiritual battles we face internally are profound and relentless. They manifest as a tug of war between our world's temptations and the aspirations to align with God's will. This struggle, reminiscent of Apostle Paul's reflection in Romans, signifies our human vulnerability to sin and transgressions. But there is a beacon of hope amidst this inner turmoil. Jesus Christ. Through him, we not only gain insight into our intricate battles, but also find the strength and grace to overcome. Jesus embodies the perfect example of resistance to temptation, and through faith in him, we too can conquer our innermost conflicts. But as we ponder our internal struggle, a pressing external question arises. How does a Christian navigate the complexities of war in the real world? Can one support or even partake in war? These questions aren't new. Theologians have grappled with them for centuries, leading to diverse perspectives within Christianity. One significant stance is pacifism. Advocates of this view anchor their beliefs in Jesus' teachings, emphasizing love, forgiveness, and nonviolence. They draw inspiration from scriptures like Jesus' instruction to turn the other cheek in the Gospel of Matthew. For pacifists, violence, even in the face of oppression or aggression, is seen as incompatible with Christian discipleship. They uphold that Christians should, under all circumstances, live peacefully, refraining from acts of violence or warfare. And while I resonate with the core values of love and peace, I find pacifism a challenging doctrine to wholly embrace in a world that, unfortunately, is far from Indianic principles. This brings me to the just war theory, a perspective I am more aligned with in our fallen world. Rooted deeply in the intellectual legacies of great theologians like Augustine and Aquinas, the just war theory isn't a carte blanche approval for war. Instead, it postulates that for a war to be deemed just, it must meet certain criteria. Here is what the criteria says. The war must address a real and significant threat or wrong. Defensive wars against aggressive invaders often qualify, but wars of conquest for plunder do not. Then it's the right intention. The primary objective of the war must be to the establishment of peace. Any secondary motives like the desire for power or resources are not acceptable. Next is the legitimate authority. Only a rightful and recognized authority, typically a government, can declare war. Rebel factions or unauthorized groups cannot justify warfare. Then last resort. Before resorting to war, all peaceful options and diplomatic efforts should be exhausted. Then the probability of success. Entering a war without a reasonable chance of success is viewed as a needless loss of life and resources. And then proportionality. The harm caused by the war should not outweigh the good that is expected to come from it. And then civilian immunity. Innocent civilians should be safeguarded and not deliberately targeted in warfare. This theory acknowledges the tragic reality that sometimes war might be the lesser of two evils. It's not a call to arms, but a framework to evaluate the morality of war, seeking to limit its harm and ensure its pursued for the right reasons. Historically, we've also seen the notion of crusaders or holy wars, driven by the desire to defend Christendom or fulfill divine commands. However, in light of Christ's teaching, many modern Christian denominations find this view inconsistent. The modern world also introduces us to concepts like preventative war or preemptive strikes. These aren't universally accepted among believers. Ultimately, some Christians feel the call of personal conscience, emphasizing individual convictions and decision-making. But the question continues: can Christians take part in war and ultimately take a life if it's needed? Some Christians argue that the answer is yes, because we must obey the government, citing scriptures like Romans 13, which says that, let everyone be subject to the governing authority, for there is no authority except that which is from God has been established. To say this mandate participation in state-sanctioned military actions. These believers hold that governments instituted by God serve to maintain order. In today's turbulent world, right, the term peacemaker is not just a gentle descriptor, but a clarion call to action. When we are called to be peacemakers, it isn't just a nod to a comforting sentiment. It's an acknowledgement of divine challenge. The universe, with its strife and discord, beckons us to enter its chaos and sow the fabric of harmony. Jesus Christ called us not to simply wish for peace, but to actively work towards it. He challenged us to be the builders of harmony in a fractured world. Throughout history, there are instances when war, as agonizing as it is, paves the way for lasting peace. When the innocents are terrorized or denied their basic rights, the journey to tranquility can demand immense sacrifice. The sentiment mirrors the Roman centurion, whose faith was praised by Jesus in Matthew 8. Or the battles faced by David, our warrior king. Even the book of Revelations foretells an ultimate clash between good and evil. At times, this shows us our divine calling might very well be to stand firm in the face of such adversaries. However, it's crucial to remember that wars, as deeply sorrowful as they are symptomatic of humanity's missteps, our shared fallen nature. War stands as a solemn testament to the frailties of our often misguided endeavors. So in a world where the drums of conflict beat loudly, what is our recourse? First and foremost, prayer. As Paul ardently articulates in Ephesians, prayer is our anchor, but faith without works is inert. We must couple our spiritual petitions with tangible efforts, rallying behind peace movements, extending a helping hand to those scarred by conflict, championing justice, and standing tall against oppression. Above all, our responsibility is to embody and propagate the teachings of Jesus, the epitome of peace and reconciliation. In closing, the rifts and rumbles of our world cry out for solace and unity. We are bearers of Christ's message, are entrusted with the flame of hope, the light of reconciliation. Let us embrace the wisdom Jesus imparts in the book of John, ardently pursuing and proliferating his peace. As we part ways today, I implore each of you to introspect. How can you, in your unique capacity, be a conduit of peace in your circles and extend it even further? May the grace of God embolden us, guiding our steps in the noble endeavor ahead. Amen.